So there's this small pond choked with gadwalls. I mean, lots of gadwalls on the surface. And I had this German short hair pointer that was, pretty good dog. So we put the bird up. The bird gets a nice pitch. And there was a patch of cattails at the edge of the pond, right? So we flushed the gadwalls, and the bird comes down, hits 2 ducks, and then binds to the third one. And I really didn't, pay much attention to that. I walked over to the bird and, picked her up from the duck, and I was feeding her and everything. And then, the dog was just running around. And then the dog gets into the cattails and comes out with a gadwall in his mouth.
Hey everyone, welcome back for another episode of the Falconry Told podcast, and what is now the finale of our first ever international series, which features some of Mexico's finest. And we have to start off by giving one last thank you to some of the people who made this series possible, being the fine folks at Marshall Radio Telemetry, the makers of the most carefully engineered and reliable tracking systems available. For more information on their products, including the awesome GPS system, head to marshallradio.com. We'd also like to thank the North American Falconers Association and the Falconry Fund, whose small grants program helped make endeavors like this possible. Their small grants program helps stimulate innovative science, outreach, and scholarly activities for the North American falconry community, and also specifically supports raptor conservation, falconry traditions, and falconers themselves. For more information on the Falconry Fund, head to falconryfund.org. And for more information on the North American Falconers Association, head to www.n-a-f-a.com. And we also need to thank our friends at Pursuit Falconry and Conservation Magazine for their continued joint efforts in helping to promote the art of falconry across the world. If you need to get into some new good falconry content, articles, pictures, etc., I highly recommend you head to pursuitfalconry.co.uk and subscribe. And last but certainly not least, our series featuring Mexico concludes with Rodrigo Munro-Wilson, who I have to give a lot of credit to for making this series happen. Without his help, I don't believe that I could have pulled this off. He was gracious enough not only to host me, but help contact all these wonderful falconers who I had the pleasure of meeting and getting to know a little bit during this week's stay in Mexico. And like I said, without his help, I don't think I could have pulled this off or make this happen. So thank you again so much, Rodrigo, for helping make this happen. And I also have to send a thank you to the Coulsons, who were the ones who initially made the introduction between Rodrigo and I. So thank you again very much, Tom and Jen, for all of your help during this process. And thanks again to all the wonderful falconers who took the time to share their stories and meet up with me over the course of this week. And of course, thank you all for listening. And I hope you've enjoyed and gotten something out of it. So anyway, with that, I give you all Rodrigo Munro-Wilson. Here we go. Thank you again, Rodrigo, for going ahead and allowing me to, like I said earlier, invade your home, your life, and disrupt it for a week.
No, it's been a great trip. We've been happy to have you here. I think we've been able to show you some good hawking and a little bit of Mexican falconry. And I think you've had some good interviews for the podcast. So overall, I think it's been a successful trip, and it's been a pleasure to have you here. It's always good to have an excuse to take a few days off from work and enjoy falconry and friends. So it's been great. Thank you.
Well, no, it's anytime I can actually bring some degree of positivity to someone else's life, I guess. I'll always consider that a win. Lord knows, my life is kind of all over the place and kind of can be a train wreck from time to time. So anytime I can be a convenient excuse for some positivity for somebody else, then it makes it all that much better when everything goes well.
Well, thank you. You brought some rain that was much needed, some good weather, and some good times. So we've been, I guess we've had a good time, and had some fun days, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. And like I said, you have a really nice new house. I look forward to seeing it again whenever it's all completed. But you've got a great view. And how long did you say you've been in this house now?
We moved just before Christmas. It because of COVID, the construction was delayed, and that most of the house was built, right? But we still needed to finish bathrooms, doors, floors, windows, air conditioning, all those little details that even though the house is there, you still can't live in it because so many things are missing. But we moved in right before Christmas, and we had to kind of camp a little bit. But you are officially our first guest in this house. So we had to make some last minute arrangements to the guest room, but we finally got it semi completed. So you've had to camp a little bit here too. But fortunately we got it done on time.
Well, this isn't really camping. I've camped out in significantly worse conditions inside and outside houses before. No, this has been great. As I told you and told Jen and WhatsApp, I've already marked my territory. This is officially my second room now. You're either going to have to build a new guest room, or people are going to have to just deal with the fact that this has already been marked and is mine now. So this is my second home.
Well, you're always welcome.
No, it's been great though, and like I said, it was really cool on Monday, seeing of course after our little slight delay. I don't even know if you call it a mishap on getting here and finding out about the surprise tax and things like that for recording equipment that neither of us knew about and stuff. I mean, like I really can't complain on at all about how this week has gone, and the hunt that we did on Monday morning, I should say, was pretty eye-opening to me, in a couple different ways. I was surprised, number one, like kind of how similar that, the hunting kind of is, especially like, with the goshawks and stuff. But I mean, with subtle differences here and there. But yeah, I mean, as far as, your typical hunting grounds and the different, types of, I mean, I know you told me you're pretty much, primarily, a quail hunter, but I mean, for the most part, ever since you've lived in Monterrey, that's been kind of your primary thing to hunt, hasn't it? Isn't that what you said?
Well, I mean, not really. I love quail, and the dogs add something very important to the hunt, right? I've hawked a little bit of everything. I really like quail. Like I told you, if I had to pick, that would be like my favorite quarry to fly. I've hawked cottontails, jackrabbits, quail, both bobwhite and scaled mainly, and a little bit of Mearns quail or Moctezuma quail that are difficult to find in my state, usually inside the forest, but I've hawked them in other states in Mexico with success. And of course, ducks and a little bit of, doves and other quarry like snipe and stuff like that. But that's that is not my main thing, right? If I had to tell you what have I hawked the most, is probably, yes, quail, ducks, and jackrabbits with, gotcha, hair socks and goshawks. Now we're focusing on quail right now because I'm breeding goshawks, and the jackrabbit populations are really low right now. A couple years ago, we had this hemorrhagic rabbit virus that basically wiped out our cottontail and jackrabbit population. So it's very difficult to hawk. You saw it yourself. I mean, we walked for a couple hours in prime country, and I think we saw a couple jackrabbits in an area where you would normally, see at least 20 in that same period of time or in that territory, right? So yeah, I mean, I like the dog work. The pointing dogs is something that I really enjoy. So yeah, but I've hawked a lot of ducks with peregrines, and caught. I mean, I really enjoy also hawking jackrabbits. In the beginning, it was mostly Harris hawks, and now, with the goshawks, and now that we're breeding them, I mean, it's just I guess logical that you fly what you breed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I'm really breeding them because I wanted to have the availability to fly them, right? Because in Mexico I mean, you don't have access to wild goshawks. I mean, you can't legally trap them, and the range of goshawks in Mexico is really restricted. So, the obvious choice was to get some birds and breed them in captivity to have stuff to fly, right? To have birds to fly. So that's what we've been doing. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I guess I should have specified that's kind of what you're flying now as opposed to what you're, kind of like your favorite. But yeah, I mean, and you kind of like you were telling me earlier also, normally you have, a few different types of birds that you have in kind of like a hunting party that you try and hunt, at the same time on your hunts and stuff. But because of the circumstance, I remember you telling me now that because of the circumstances with the way things are with that virus and everything else, it's pretty much you're just primarily hunting quail with the goshawks because of, well, that's just, what you have to hunt at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, normally, like you mentioned, we usually have a couple of birds. Like, we would have a Harris hawk for the jackrabbits and a peregrine for the ducks, and maybe an aplomado for quail, or a Tiercel peregrine for quail, or maybe a Cooper's hawk for quail. But normally we would fly at least a long wing and a short wing, right? Most of the time it's a long wing for ducks and a Harris hawk for jackrabbits, because Monterrey, the city where we live, has gotten bigger and bigger, right? So you have to drive at least 1 hour and a half, 1 hour 45 minutes to go to a decent hawking area, right? So you've driven all this time. If you go out there, you fly your falcon, catch one duck, or maybe two, and then that's it. You have to drive for an hour and a half, and the place used to be loaded with jackrabbits and other quarries, so it was only logical to fly another bird, right? You're already out there. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but with the building of the house and all that stuff, I'm a surgeon and I have limited time, so it was not a good time for me to start a new bird. I'm talking about a long wing, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, so we're pretty happy, and hopefully we'll add a long wing to the team next year. But right now, yeah, we've been focused on quail for the last 2 seasons, mostly desert quail, which is what we find a bit more challenging. Scaled quail. We have other areas for bobwhites, but I think the flights at scaled quail are a bit more challenging for everybody. I mean, the terrain is complicated. It's rocky, it's irregular. You have lots of cactus. Everything wants to sting you and bite you, and there's thorns of all kinds, and it's hard on your boots and it's hard on the dogs. But it's really challenging quarry, and really worthy quarry, right?
Sure. Yeah. I hadn't really gotten a chance to fly quail at all. I mean, as I was telling you, before, we don't really have a whole lot of quail left in our area. The coveys are very few and far between. It's a form of hunting that is not something that I've been very familiar with, and this is actually the first time I've seen quail hawking in person, whether it's with goshawks or any species. I haven't been exposed to it, unfortunately. I mean, after seeing it, I think it's cool. I can totally respect it. I'm not sure it's something that I would, consider at the top of the list for me personally, but I can totally see why people like it and, get a lot out of it. But yeah, I just, especially, in this type of setting that you're in, especially certain times of the year, not only do you have the plants and the different terrain, but you also have rattlesnakes and other stuff that, I'm not really so sure that I'm totally sure I'd be, super down with that, all the time. But I mean, I understand it's the circumstances you have to deal with, though.
Yeah. Rattlesnakes are a problem in our area. We, try to train our dogs, to avoid them with, of course, the training collar. The nice thing is that once you get, once the temperatures start dropping, in that area where we flew quail, that's more than 1,000 meters. So that's more than 3,000 feet higher than Monterrey, right? So it's much, much colder. For example, here it would be really warm in October, and if you go out there early in the morning, it'd be very nice temperature to fly and work the dogs. So there you get freezing temperatures or you get cold temperatures a lot sooner than we do down here. Like for example, the bobwhite country, which is lower, it's almost at sea level, and it's agricultural. You have to be very careful with rattlesnakes because they'll be out almost until December because we don't get any freezing temperatures until very late in the year. In the higher ground in the desert where we get the scaled quail, usually freezing temperatures come sooner and you get rid of the rattlesnakes. So you can basically not worry about them. Basically, this season, we only saw one rattlesnake in October, and she was pretty lethargic, which means that, the cold temperature slowed them down and then they go underground and then you don't see them again until maybe, late February or early March that it starts warming up. But, right now, in the desert country, we don't worry much about rattlesnakes. In the other areas, where it's warmer and, we don't get so much cold, then, you're hawking, you have to be very careful.
No, I totally get that. Yeah, and as far as I have kind of touched on this with a couple other guys, and then of course, on the drives that we've had and all that. But just the effects of growth in cities, and how that obliterates some of your hunting spots and all that. But I mean, touch a little bit on just how much that's affected your hawking here over the last few decades or so. I mean, I know you were telling me that it used to be so much easier because you could get out and in short times be out in hawking fields, and now you have to drive hour and a half, 2 hours and stuff. But I think it's good to know at least for other people that are listening that live in different parts of the world that not just their areas are being affected by all this construction and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've been fortunate enough to have visited falconers, and I've been hawking in the U.S., in Europe, in South America, and I guess this is the common denominator, right? Everybody has lost good hawking grounds to development or farming or you name it. But yeah, Monterrey has gotten really big, and I guess it's the same story for everybody. Almost everywhere, right? Unless you really live in a small town or in a rural setting. If you live in a city, you need to. It takes you longer to get out of the city and to find some good hawking, right? So I think it's at least for me, now I need to at least drive for an hour to get to a field where I can fly a long wing, just fly for training. If I'm going to drone the bird, or I'm going to, fly at a homing pigeon, or just, basic training, I need to drive at least an hour to get to a field. And then if I want to hawk, if I want to find an area with doves, quail, ducks, snipe, whatever it is that we're hawking, I need to drive for another at least 45 minutes. So you're looking at at least an hour and a half drive for some real hawking, right? In the past, I could drive for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and get to a place where I could fly cottontails and quail and maybe jackrabbits. Now that's impossible, right? But I guess probably. Most falconers, if you ask them that same question, will answer the same thing, right?
Probably, yeah. I mean, and that's unfortunate. I mean, where I live, And, you know, where some people are still fortunate enough to live, I mean, you either have to adapt and you know, do some degree of urban hawking, or if you just want to, you know, stick to country hawking, you're going to be driving for a while. But I think, like I said, I just think it's important that people just kind of keep getting it hammered into their head, though, that this is not just a local thing. Like, this is a worldwide thing. Yes. And, you know, I don't think people can hear that enough.
Yeah. I think it's a worldwide problem. I have nothing against urban hawking. Mm-hmm. For me, an important part of what I like about falconry is that you need to get out, right? So get out of the city, and you know, to an open area, to a free place, right? This is part of the I guess the experience. So I've not been too keen to get into urban hawking, even though we have some stuff we could fly. We don't have a big starling problem here yet, but we have a lot of grackles, and there's for sure no shortage of feral pigeons and sparrows in the city. But I still like to get out, right? Mm-hmm. So a few of my friends that have gotten Harris hawks from the ones we breed have tried you know, urban hawking, and they've been successful. And I have nothing against it, you know, really. But for me, I'll try to get out, you know, to the field as much as I can. You know, I hope I get a chance to do it for many years. But if the time comes, I'll if I have to fly in the city and I have no other option, well, I'll have to do it, right? But right now, I'd rather invest a couple hours driving and be able to get out and hawk in I don't know how to call it, in an open area or in a
rural.
Yeah, there you go. We were planning on taking you out hawking quail, you know, both bobwhites and scaled quail. Mm-hmm. And I really hadn't had the time this year to go scout, you know, the areas where the bobwhites are, because we've been mainly focusing on the scaled. But I went out a couple of times, and you know, just from COVID till now, a lot of the fields changed. Some of, you know, the areas that were just grass now are orchards. There's oranges there. There's lemons there. In this area where we fly, it's a big citrus growing area. And, you know, some of the areas that were good fields to fly are now being developed for agriculture, right? Or this particular ranch that was really good was sold, and now the owner doesn't let you in. You know, I think we all have to deal with the availability of land, and it's such an important thing for any falconer to have a good area with quarry to fly, right? And mm-hmm. and I guess that's one of the major things that is always on a falconer's mind. You know, where are you going to fly? You know, if the number of quarry, I mean, you know, the availability and the you know, the abundance of what you're trying to fly, because that's how you make a bird. Right? Yeah.
If you don't have any quarry, then you shouldn't have a bird. You know, I mean, it's because they're not pets. You know, and you're not doing the bird justice or being fair to the bird if you're just going to keep it and not hunt it.
Exactly.
I totally agree. But well, and so let's just go ahead and jump in a little bit then to some of your history, and you know, just talk about how you discovered you know, this sport. And you know, you mentioned that you had some experiences, you know, hunting in the States and, you know, different places around the world, and you know, just kind of go into all that a little bit.
Wow, well, that's a long story.
We've got time.
Yeah, I was born in Mexico City, and then because of my mother's work, we moved to Lima, Peru. I think I've always been fascinated by raptors. I got to see wild raptors in Lima, mostly migrating peregrines, you know, hawks, you know, flying around the city, and it always got my heart pumping, you know, just to see a kestrel, you know, got me really, really excited. So I think that was from a very, very early age. Then when I was around 10 years old, in the market in Lima, we found a guy selling 2 IS kestrels. So my family has always had animals, dogs, parrots, canaries. My mother works with horses. So there's always been plenty of pets in my house, right? But there's no hunters in my family. So, just getting an animal that eats meat and everything was kind of, my mother was not really keen on the idea, right? But I begged, and finally we bought these 2 baby kestrels, and I brought them home. And I had no idea of what to do with them. I had nobody to teach me all I had seen was probably something in a medieval movie of some guy with a bird on the fist and a hood, with feathers on top, and that was it. So all I knew is that this was like a medieval sport, and some people practiced it in Europe, and they hunted with the birds. That was all I knew, right? So I raised these kestrels, and it was like a tame hack situation because, of course, they were imprints. We had a really large garden in this house where we lived in Lima, so eventually the kestrels started flying around and they were loose. So I would go out and call them, whistle to them, and they would fly down, and I would feed them, pieces of chicken heart, because that's, what we thought was the proper food. And they did okay. I fed them chicken, little pieces of chicken gizzard and chicken heart, and they did okay. Eventually, they started hunting on their own, and I could see, my kestrels, chasing sparrows and stuff. And a couple of times I saw them, catch the sparrows and take them up in the tree and eat them. But they still stayed around the house. Then a couple of years later, I got a book as a gift in Christmas, 1987. We just checked it.
Yeah.
I got this book, The Art of Falconry, El Arte de Cetrería, by Félix Rodríguez de la Fuente, a Spanish author, which I guess that book inspired a whole generation of Spanish-speaking falconers, both European and Latin American. And I consumed that book, right? It was the only available book in Spanish. I mean, I could read English, but I had no falconry books available, right? From the only little bits and pieces I could get from like the news or some National Geographic documentary, you would see a gentleman really smartly dressed in a grouse moor with a pointer and some mention about falconry. That's all I had, right? Mm-hmm. So very few falconers in Lima at the time. All of them were very secretive. Everybody, they were all really jealous of their knowledge. They were not doing very much, really, but for some reason, I don't want this kid to learn how to have a bird, right? And anyway, so I had to kind of learn by myself, and I consumed this book. Of course, this book only dealt with the peregrine and partridge hawking, a little bit on magpie hawking with a cast, and basically the training of the goshawk. To catch rabbits and hares, and that was it. And it was really very basic. It didn't teach you any weight control. I had some photos of what a hood is supposed to be, and the jesses and the swivel and the block perch and a bow perch and a muse, and that was it, right? Mm-hmm. So I mean, something very inspiring, very well written. It really got you got your imagination flying because it described all these high mounting flights and stoops at partridge and all of this. So for a 10-year-old or 12-year-old kid, it was really something, and I think I read the book cover to cover maybe 10 times, and I just basically consumed everything. I probably, could tell you, where the pictures were in which page and what paragraph said this or that. Finally, but I mean, it didn't say anything about the birds I had available, which were kestrels, harrisawks, aplomado falcons, passage, tundra peregrines. So that's how my falconry started. There's not a lot to fly in the coast of Peru, which is basically a desert. There's some valleys that have some quarry, but basically it's some birds, right? We fly the coots, moorhens. These rails, rails. And I wrote an article for the NAFA journal, which is called Return to Puerto Viejo, which talks about, me moving to Mexico and developing as a falconer in Mexico with all sorts of different birds and quarries, and then coming back 10 or 15 years later to Peru, to the same areas where I got started as a kid, right? And it's called Return to Puerto Viejo, and it's in one of the NAFA journals. I don't remember which year, but should be able to find it. Then we moved because of my mother's work again. We moved to Mexico, and it was like an eye opener for me, and it was just crazy because, for example, in Peru, I didn't have fur quarry to fly. So here I had cottontails, I had jackrabbits, I had an abundance of, harris-hawks, big harris-hawks, right? That could handle jackrabbits because the harris-hawks in South America are smaller. So then I had, of course, aplomado falcons. I had Cooper's hawks that I dreamt about. I just saw pictures in books, and oh wow, a sparrowhawk. The only sparrowhawk available in Peru was a bicolored hawk, and it was extremely difficult to get. And for a high school kid, right, with no support from my parents, because they tolerated me keeping birds, but I had no encouragement, right, because they ate meat, they were predators, and my family is basically a non-hunting family. So I came to Mexico. I was a little older. I had a car, so I could do some more stuff. So anyway, I was exposed to quail, to ducks, to doves, and then, of course, NAFA. So I became a member. This was in 1989, probably, and then there was a little bit more falconers here in Mexico. So I got in touch with Alex Franco, which lives in Mexico City, also a NAFA member. He's the one actually that got me to join NAFA. And then I started meeting other falconers. Getting in touch via phone. There was no email at the time. So slowly I started, developing, flying other birds and learning. Then a big thing for me was in the probably 1991 or 92. A group of people here in Monterrey wanted to start a bird collection for conservation. So we started with like a research aviary, and we had parrots and had crassids and also had raptors, right? So I had a few, like a couple harris hawks and maybe an aplomado and a peregrine falcon. I started working with the local authorities because there was nobody doing raptor rehabilitation. So we started, I started getting all the injured birds or the birds that were confiscated from the illegal bird dealers. They brought them to us, and I tried to rehab these birds. So then when the people that were sponsoring this effort saw the hawks, they liked it, and they said, well, why don't we do something bigger, something, serious with these raptors? So then at that time, Andrés Marcelo Sada from Monterrey was a member of the board of directors of the Falconry Fund. So he introduced me to Peter Jenny, Bill Burnham. I had the opportunity to go visit them in the U.S., and then I met Pete Widener. I met Tom Meckley. I met the Much brothers. I met Dan Conkle. And, all those guys kind of took me under their wing. And I learned a lot from them, and they had a lot of patience with me, and then that's how I got into what you would call, like modern falconry, right? Because I was, I had no information, no resources, so basically I bought every book I could. I discovered that you could buy falconry equipment, you could buy kangaroo leather, then telemetry came around and everything. So in one of those visits to Wyoming, to Sheridan, Wyoming, visiting PG&E, he introduced me to Dan Conkle, which at the time was training a large group of jeers to go sell in the Middle East. And there was a falconer called Richard Esposito, Dick Esposito, from Colorado, working with Dan Conkle. So as you know, to make a long story short, we hired Richard Esposito to come and work here in Monterrey, Mexico, for Mr. Alfonso Romo, my uncle, as a professional falconer. And I learned a lot from him. Basically, you know, how to fly falcons. I learned from Richard everything from, you know, telemetry, homing pigeons, husbandry, you know, how to teach a bird to wait on, all that stuff. So you know, I guess those guys were my mentors. You know, Pete Widener, Pete Jenny, Tom Meckley, and Richard Esposito, Brian Much, Dale Much. So those guys were like my mentors in you know, getting started with falconry. Of course, I had other quarries here. I don't have grouse. We don't have grouse here. We don't have partridge. I have quail. My upland bird is quail in my area. You know, we have some wild pheasants in Mexico, but they're on the other side of the country. And I had ducks. So that's what, you know, I guess I started flying mostly with long wings ducks. And then I discovered pointing dogs. We were bumping quail all the time when we went out to fly the falcons, and I got a German short-haired pointer, and that's where it all changed, right? We started hawking quail with Cooper's hawks, then Aplomado falcons, and then what is my favorite now, which is the long wings and the goshawks, right? And this time, well, I had the opportunity to you know, collaborate with Tom Meckley with the South Padre Island Peregrine Falcon banding program. We did some banding work with peregrines on the coast of Mexico. We got a special permit from the Mexican government to trap peregrines. And then this foundation, which was called Fundación ARA, got together with another institution in the U.S., which was called Earthspan, to work with satellite telemetry. So we did, it was the first time in Mexico that satellite telemetry was used to study wildlife. And we studied the home ranges of golden eagles, which are endangered in Mexico, and it's the national bird of Mexico. So we did that, and we also did telemetry work on tundra peregrines wintering in the Mexican Gulf Coast, which was, you know, some really cool stuff.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, like you said, we've got plenty of time. I'm glad that you elaborated, you know, so much on that. You know, I mean, like I said, I know people appreciate hearing, you know, these kind of backgrounds and stories from different falconers, and you know, it seems like the longer the better. So that's, you know, I'm glad that I'm glad that you had a long one to share. To be honest, you know, like I said, it's and it's nice when people kind of go more into depth, you know, with all that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I tried to make a really long story short because you know, I can easily get sidetracked into a story, and you know, but I mean, this is like overall what I've been doing for the last I don't know, more than 25 years, right?
Yeah.
I've been fortunate to work with raptor rehabilitation, so I've had the opportunity to work with passage peregrines, haggard peregrines, ISS. I mean, not just peregrines. I mean, hawks of all kinds from the species we've had here. You know, even some tropical species like hawk eagles and semi-collared forest falcons. So I've been lucky enough to try a little bit of everything, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I hope I'm not boring you with all of this.
No. I mean it. Like the longer the stories, the better. But you know, a couple of things I do want to touch on a little bit. You mentioned a couple things, you know, like the whole mentor situation that you had, and you know, like, you know, sometimes running into the whole, you know, like illegal trade issue, you know, that sometimes, you know, can happen in other countries that don't have a lot of, you know, regulation and things like that. I wanted in our episode at least to kind of touch a little bit more on, you know, some of a little bit more elaborately anyway, you know, some of the main differences between falconry in Mexico and falconry in you know, countries like the U.S. and even some other, you know, like even other countries, like as far as just, you know, what the main differences are with regulations and you know, I think that, you know, we don't have to go super in depth to all that, but I think it's important, you know, like I said, I mean, that people kind of understand, you know, that not everything's the same everywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, regulations in Mexico, as far as the ability to keep a raptor, are very restrictive. Mm-hmm. What the law in Mexico says is that you cannot keep a wild raptor in captivity. Mm-hmm. Okay, the only reasons that you could, I guess, handle a wild raptor is for research purposes, right? But not for falconry. So the law says that all raptors in Mexico have to be captive bred, like most countries in Europe. Mm-hmm. Okay, you know that the reality is different, right? Mm-hmm. And that's probably because of a lack of enforcement of these regulations. We could talk all night about this, and you know now that it's there. I have some really strong feelings about this, but that's one of the main differences. Falconry is not properly legalized and regulated in Mexico. It's kind of accepted. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You don't have to take a test to get a falconry license. That doesn't exist here. Basically, you get the bird from a legal source, hopefully, right? Mm-hmm. And then you just register the bird in your name. So Mr. Jonathan Munier keeps a red tail, right? Mm-hmm. And he got it from a breeder, and then that's it. Okay, so nobody checks your facilities. Nobody checks if you know enough to properly keep a raptor, and that's it. So at least in our local state club in Nuevo León, we have tried to do that more like the American way. Okay, tried to have like a sponsorship deal where the new guys get to hang out and go fly with the older guys. It's not like a, I guess, formal sponsorship program, right? Because we can't keep you from getting a bird. You know, a lot of people here in Mexico get the bird first, and then they want to figure out what to do with it. Okay, and some people end up being falconers and doing it long term, and some others don't. But it's just because there's an availability of birds, right? You can mm-hmm. you can go to a market and you'll probably be able to buy a hairsock or a red tail. There's plenty of raptor breeders now in Mexico. But it didn't used to be that way several years ago, right? So most raptors at the time were wild, and we've always had a problem with illegal bird trade. It happens, at this time too. But anyway, that's one of the main differences. Is like to be a falconer, there's no like licensing system. You need a hunting license to hunt with a gun. So if you want to hunt with a shotgun or a rifle, you need to go. You do need to take a hunter safety course. So we're trying to get that for falconry too, but at the moment it's not on the regulations, right? So basically, in our local club, we have tried to encourage that, and since we've been working with the authorities doing raptor rehabilitation for all this time. We have a good relationship with the authorities, and they really consider falconers knowledgeable people that love raptors, and they work for their conservation and for their well-being, and not bird dealers, right? Because in the past, in other parts of Mexico, falconers have been involved with illegal trafficking of birds, unfortunately. So the wildlife authorities kind of label, oh, you're a falconer, yeah, you're a bird dealer in disguise, basically, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not always the case. The majority of falconers are have good intentions, but there has been some rotten apples that have been involved in trapping and selling birds and stuff like that, which is something very unfortunate. But at least in our state, we have tried to have a good relationship with the authorities, and fortunately, there's no illegal trading of birds here, at least that we know of, or is tolerated by the falconers, right? Mm-hmm. If we know of something happening, we'll work with the authorities, and we'll get people responsible. And so we try to do that, work in for the conservation of raptors.
Well, I mean, it's good that you had the experience of kind of like what an actual mentorship, looks like, or it is kind of on the surface, by your experiences in the U.S. And I'm glad that you've kind of chosen the lead by example, like the lead by example approach, with kind of the rest of the the country, and just worrying about kind of what is what affects you in your own backyard, and hope that catches on with other places. But if you've already done what you can to establish a good relationship with your local authorities and the things that are within your control, then that's a good start, I think.
Yeah, and we can't do more, right?
Yeah.
Mexico has a federal law, federal system, just like the U.S., but every state has their own. I guess it's a different dominion, right? Like every state is independent.
Sure.
So here, the wildlife law is the same for every state. There's no differences. It's like in this state I actually can trap a bird, and this other one the federal, in the whole country, raptors basically can't be touched. You can't keep a raptor for falconry unless it's captive bred. That's like one of the main differences from the United States, right?
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for elaborating on that. I think it's always good for, like I said, other countries to know the differences, and that you can't really you can't take anything that you have for granted. I think a lot of times, I mean, especially us in the U.S., I think that there's a lot of times that we can potentially take things for granted with our ability to trap wild raptors and things like that. And I mean, it's just good to appreciate what you have, in a lot of cases. And yeah, so I mean, like I said, thanks for expounding on that a little bit. And now I think is a good time to go ahead and jump into story time. With as far as your favorite recollection of a hunt that you liked, or it always sticks out in your mind, or a special bird that you had, and kind of go that route.
Yeah, wow. I do have some stories. It's kind of hard to pick, but one that sticks out, something really unusual, is one year we had a pretty bad drought, and we didn't have a lot of water in the ponds. So this very good pond was pretty small, and it's a pond that usually holds ducks. So I was flying this an autumn Peel's peregrines. I got some Peel's peregrines from the U.S. Could never breed any pure Peel's, but I did manage to breed an autumn Peel's crosses, and that's what I've flown most. Most of my long winging career, I guess, has been those birds, and plus some passage and haggard birds from the rehabilitation. But anyway, let's not let's focus on the story. So there's this small pond choked with gadwalls. I mean, lots of gadwalls on the surface, and I had this German short hair pointer that was pretty good dog. So we put the bird up. The bird gets a nice pitch, and there was a patch of cattails at the edge of the pond. Right. So we flush the gadwalls, and the bird comes down, hits two ducks, and then binds to the third one. And I really didn't, pay much attention to that. I walked over to the bird, and picked her up from the duck, and I was feeding her and everything. And then the dog was just running around, and then the dog gets into the cattails and comes out with a gadwall in his mouth. And okay, so second duck, and I put him in the hawking vest, and then the dog goes. I didn't really think about it, and I kept on feeding the bird, and this was late afternoon, so I didn't have a chance for another flight. So the dog goes into the cattails again and emerges with yet another duck. so we caught three ducks in one flight. Which It happened to me another time but only with two ducks, like a double, right? Mm-hmm. This was a triple. So that was interesting.
That's nuts. Was it from a straight stoop, or was it like kind of like one of those oh shoot, however you pronounce or describe it? I mean, was
like
it
an angled?
was it all just on the same angle, or was it on the up, like on the upswing too, or?
The flock was really tight, right? Mm-hmm. Because it was a small pond and there was probably 25 ducks or something. So they all rose at the same time. So it was like a tight formation of ducks, and the bird came in behind them and just passed horizontally through the flock like an arrow, right? And so it hit. I think. The bird just found ducks in its path, right?
Yeah.
And just kind of hit them or whatever, and then probably found this third duck. Maybe she just crashed into it, right? So she hit two ducks and basically, found the other duck in her face. So all she had to do is just grab it and land with it.
Just knocked them down like bowling pins, basically, almost.
Yeah. And then and I really, if it wasn't for the dog, I would have walked home with one duck, and and it was three. And then this same dog, I had another interesting flight. Is that we were driving down the road, and I saw a flock of bobwhites cross the road. Just walking. So, hey, nice. We got the bobwhites located, and they walked into a field. And so I let some time go by so the quail would, I guess, walk into the field a little bit more to get away from the fence. And then I put the bird up. This was, again, a Peel sonatum tiercel. And anyway, the bird goes up. When you fly quail, you don't need a bird that goes too high because it's not practical.
Right.
Quail will go into the grass or into the brush before your bird comes down. So probably, a 300-foot pitch is more than enough, right? You probably want the bird lower than that. So anyway, this was an open agricultural area, so I could let the hawk go up a little bit more. So then I let the dog loose and establishes a point. So I go in and flush, and there's this covey flushes. The bird comes down and hits a quail, and the quail falls in the grass. Right, the stubble was kind of tall, so the falcon just hit the quail and didn't go to ground. He just made a wing over, and didn't see the quail, so started mounting again. So the dog gets puts his nose in the grass and gets the quail and gives it to me. So here I have one bobwhite in the bag, right? Mm-hmm. So we walked another 30, 40 yards, and the falcon is overhead, and the dog points again. So, the same thing, flush the quail, the falcon comes down, hits it dead, and the dog picks it up, but then the falcon, since the stubble was high, ringed up again. So we had three identical flights. I already had three quail in the bag, and I said, "Man, this is too much, right? I mean, I've done my damage here, and I was really ecstatic, right? Nice dog work, good performance from the bird, whatever. So what I did is, I just got one of the quail that the dog gave me and just threw it up for the bird, and the bird just bound to it and went to ground, and that was the end of the flight. But you wish things would go like that every time, right? And it's just like extraordinary occurrences, But it's a nice memory, and I do have a picture. I have a picture with a couple friends that were with me. So is the three of us, holding three quail with the falcon and the dog.
Well, not only that, but you had witnesses too.
Oh yeah. Oh yes, of course. I have two witnesses. So yeah.
Well, I mean, I admire the fact that you're able to hold restraint and not just to see how long you can keep that streak going. I mean, I think most people would succumb to that.
Well, really, that's been my way of doing things, because since it's so hard to find good areas with enough quarry, you don't want to you don't want to abuse that, right? So, for example, like the day we went out with you and caught some quail from a particular covey. It's a fairly large covey. It's probably 15 scaled quail, and I had already caught one quail from that covey in this season, and we did a double special for you. We did a double double, I guess, double capture. We caught 2 quail in that outing. And so we've caught 3 quail from that covey, right? That's it. I'm not touching that covey again this whole season until next year, right? So we'll move on to others. So you just don't hurt, I guess, the population. And we do the same with, I guess, jackrabbits and ducks. Normally, we go out and catch 1. Maybe if I go out on the weekend and I have some friends out or my family comes with me, we'll do like 2 flights per falcon and, catch a couple ducks and that's it, but that's on a special occasion. But yeah, normally we try to hunt enough, but not overdo it, right? Because you want to, take care of your quarry numbers, especially with local stuff. Like ducks are migratory, right? So, you might have some totally different ducks on that same pond the next day. And when ducks are coming through, you'll see all sorts of different species of ducks in your same pond. So one day you'll see teal, the other day it'll be shovelers or pintails or widgeon or gadwall, and quail stay there all the time. So you don't want to be too hard on them because, then you won't have any for next year or whatever, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, that's good that you do that. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. You don't know if a hemorrhagic virus is going to, come in, or you don't know what the circumstances are going to be. So if you can hold restraint and and not, worry about, if you're more concerned with the bigger picture, then that's not a bad thing at all.
Well, I mean, a lot of people can argue with that, and I know, it's my way of thinking, and it might. I mean, if you have a period of cold weather, like a big frost, all the quail are going to die. Even if you caught them or you didn't, when you have a really bad drought or when you have really bad cold weather, quail will die anyway. And you didn't catch them, and it's not your fault, right? And or this, for the last couple of years, we have no jackrabbits because of this virus, and it's not because we caught them all. It's nothing to do with us. They're just gone. So sometimes it's like, you don't catch them, but then you're trying to take care of them, and then Mother Nature decides that something else needs to happen, and that's it. So I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. Maybe I'm not. But I don't know. That's the thing. That's the way we've done it, in the past, and I think I'll still. I feel good with that. I feel good feeling that I'm not. I didn't go out and basically destroyed a covey. I caught a couple birds and then I left that covey alone, and then look for something else. Or change the area. Before you wipe out all the rabbits in a particular field, you go somewhere else.
Yeah, well, it's all hindsight, and you never know. But if that's the way you want to practice your falconry, then there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing you can do about Mother Nature, but you can control what you want to do. So that's cool. But yeah. So I guess we can go ahead and end this on the note of whatever you want to end on, as far as do you have anything that you'd like to pass on to future generations, or just a different perspective maybe that you might want to end this on, or piece of advice, or something that's special that you've learned over all the years that you've been practicing, or anything that sticks out in your mind?
Well, yeah, I could say a lot of things. I think that the one thing that I find most important in the practice of falconry, and if I had to say something to aspiring falconers or future generations, is that the well-being of your bird comes first, right? I tell you this because, unfortunately, working on a rehab center, I sometimes get a lot of abused birds that have been in the wrong hands. Okay, I guess that in countries where you just have to do it right? In the U.S., you cannot get a license unless you pass a test. You cannot get a license until your sponsor, which is a knowledgeable person, approves of your facilities, and you have the proper equipment, and so in our country sometimes it doesn't work that way. But I think that we need to have respect for the birds we fly, right? So that's, for me, it's the most important thing is that if you're going to have a raptor in captivity, you need to do your best to keep it in the best health possible. You need to provide the best food possible. You have to have the best facilities you can have or you can afford, and try to make your falconry bird as close to what a wild bird would be. I'm talking about not just fitness, but the condition of the beak, the talons, the feathers. Many times you go out to a meet and you look at birds that are just perfect, beautiful, and then other birds that their feathers are a mess, and the equipment they have is a mess. So clearly that guy is not taking proper care of his bird, right?
Yeah, and ultimately, we can always make the case that if properly taken care of and flown a lot and hunted a lot, that bird's still going to be better off, with a good falconer than they would be in the wild, because we all know that so many of these birds die, and I totally agree. I mean, the proper respect needs to be given, and I think that's very good advice, and or a very good thought, But yeah, no, I think that's a really good note to end on, and I just have to say for the 100th time, thank you again so much for all the hospitality. As I told you, I come into situations with no expectations. I always try and prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And in those situations, the best ends up being that much better, if everything's great, which they have been this week. I wouldn't have been able to do all this without you and your majority of assistance in planning all this. So, like I said, thank you again so much for your time and welcoming me into your home, and for I can't think of too many people that would be willing to just accept what is more or less an acquaintance, but mostly still a stranger, and chauffeur them, as much as 7.5 hours away to a different state and place, and go out of their way to show them a good time, and introduce them to so many different people and experiences. So thank you again, and I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me on the podcast, and it's been a great week. We've enjoyed having you here, and you're always welcome. When Jennifer mentioned that you'd like to come, that's all the recommendation I needed. So you're always welcome, and I'm happy that you had a good time. We tried to show you around with very limited time, because we really had only 5 effective days to try and show you some falconry over here. But I think it's been great, and thank you so much for all the effort, your equipment, and you clearly are passionate about doing this, and getting it done the best way possible. Your setup is pretty impressive. That's why you had to pay taxes, man, at customs. You got the customs guys scared. You look like you're working for a rock band or something. You're setting up for a concert. But well, thank you so much for helping us. People from around the world that follow your podcast learn a little bit more about falconry in Mexico, and hopefully we'll stay in touch and can do more of this.
Yeah, no, and like we were talking about the other day, I'd love to eventually do a Mexico International Series part 2, where we get to go to 7 hours or 8 hours in the opposite direction and go see some other cool stuff, or whatever the case may be, and hopefully people enjoy this. I know they probably will, and it's been great, even despite some of your friends' hesitancy or a worry, I guess, about some of the language barrier issues, and English, of course, being a second language. But I think like I said, I mean, everybody has been great, and like I said, I couldn't ask for a better a better result. So I think we did as much as we could in a week, and getting 7 of these recorded, along with being able to absorb what we and do what we did in 5 days, I think is I think more than a good result.
Well, we're glad that you're happy, and it was great to have you here. Thank you.
Well, like I said, I appreciate it again, and I guess it's almost fifth dinner time. I mean,
yeah, we need to go eat some more.
Yeah, yeah. For everybody that's listening, on a quick ending note, I've not been fed so many times in a week time span in my entire life. But I feel kind of like the girl that swells up like the blueberry in Willy Wonka or something, except it's instead of juice, it's tacos and every other Mexican dish you can think of. But it's been great, and thank you again, and let's go do that.
Okay.
All right.